Okay. I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, until the heart of enlightenment is reached for the benefit of all sentient beings. I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, until the heart of enlightenment is reached for the benefit of all sentient beings. I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, until the heart of enlightenment is reached for the sake of all sentient beings. Okay. So, so for those of you who missed it, I told a beam me up Scotty story a couple of weeks ago. So this has been slowly building to this moment that we all shared. So, how was your week? How was your week? Talked the last couple of weeks about watering the plant of Dharma, of really remembering the practice and staying with the practice as we move through the day, of coming back to that ground again and again. So have we been doing that? Have you been working with it? A little bit. Because that's where the rubber hits the road, as they say. That's where the practice is. And people sometimes complain that they're not making enough advancement, or they don't think they're advancing in their meditation practice. But one of the places to look is what you're doing when you're not meditating. Because if you haven't been trying to become focused or quiet for 72 hours, and then you sit down at a mat for 15 minutes and you expect your mind to be quiet, that's a pretty big ask. And so it's through the continuous development or moving towards that quiet that we begin to develop the capacity to be connected with that quiet a lot more often. That's the only way to do it. That's the only way it works. The retreats, of course, are for the deep dive, but the daily practice, since most of us, all of us, spend our life in the world, we're not monks or nuns or yogis, this is where we have to do the work. And there's no sense waiting till next year or next month. It's like we have to do the practice now. I was talking last week, I had to smile a couple of days ago, but last week I was talking about, for instance, when you're in the grocery line and you're trying to move through the morning or get things done, and somebody in the grocery line in front of you is price checking all the prices. Where's your mind at now? People know that experience. And then I was shopping Thursday or Friday morning, and we were having company for the weekend. So we sort of on a mission, if you will. And the lady in front was price checking. So it's just interesting to see that. And, a lot of times it's just opening our eyes to who's around us, to what's taking place around us, and not being so obsessed with the narrative that we have in our own head. You want to get through the checkout. But what about the older woman, or who is just having a little bit of a difficulty with technology or moving? Or what about the younger person that is really struggling to make ends meet? And so they have to price check everything. If we look around, whatever situation we find ourselves in, if we look outside of ourselves and try to have empathy for what we're seeing in front of us, or do we just hear our own head? Do we just hear our own voice? We all walk around in our own personal realities, right? We're all walking through the mall. We're all walking down the path. We're all walking down the street. And we all have our own stories going on inside our heads. A moment, a flash of seeing is stepping outside of that bubble. And in a moment when we see that, then our view completely changes about what's actually taking place. When we get outside and when we have a glimpse of what it's like to step outside our own construct, things look really, really different. So we practice that. And how do we practice that? We practice that by living our life, moving through our day, watching our emotional reactions and our mental states, knowing them for what they are and not grabbing onto them. We're not fighting it. We're not trying to not be this or not be that. We're simply developing this presence that allows a crack in the sky. By coming back to this presence again and again and again, suddenly it allows some other kind of light to come through. Look around you. Look at the world we've created. Everybody grabbing on, holding tightly to their own view of the way things should be. Art, I always call him Art Carney. Heather laughs at me. Mark Carney, not to be political, but I don't know if people know who Art Carney is. The Honeymooners. Anyway, I age myself. Mark, he said a very wise thing. He said, I choose to deal with the world as it presents itself, not as I want the world to be. That's really wise. Because that's what we have to do. We have to work with what presents itself. Of course you want to change it. Of course you want it to be different. And of course we can do things that move towards change, that move towards compassion, that move towards helping. But it's really difficult to do when we are caught up in the little rooms that we construct for ourselves. We're not seeing that lady. We're not seeing that young fellow in the lineup in front of us. We're not seeing their reality. And just in that moment of letting go of our narratives and just looking with an open heart, it changes a lot. It changes a lot. How can I help you? So this is how we water the plant of Dharma every day. And it's in every situation that we can do it in. When you wake up in the morning, when you open your eyes, just spend a moment there. When you're brushing your teeth in the morning, spend a moment there. This thing that we're investigating is always here. It's always here. And there's a point in the practice where we don't have to look for it anymore. There's a point where we just allow it to be. There's a point where the practice becomes much less about doing than it does about receiving. We allow it to be. We allow it to come. We allow it to have its fruition. It's that crack in the sky. It's that opening in the mind. We give it space. We give it opportunity. And it's a much more delightful, calm way to be. To be. And then when we have reactions, we've developed enough groundwork, we've developed enough space that we can see it better. We can see it better. And when we see it better, we're not so lost in it. When I say the crack in the sky, when I say that sense of quietness, can you put your mind there? There's an opening in the sky, you know. There's an opening in the mind. How else do we receive the blessings if all the doors and windows are closed? And sometimes you can physically feel it. Sometimes you get a sense of it. So in these meditations that we're doing on spacious awareness, we are allowing the mind to let go of narrative and enter an energetic spaciousness and feeling ourselves in that way. Feeling ourselves on the level of vibration and space and spaciousness. We develop that in the formal practice. We develop that when we're sitting on the cushion and seeing how everything that comes up in the mind is appearing and disappearing in this space, in this spaciousness. This sense of being, if you will. But we're also feeling it energetically. We're feeling it in the body. We're not following thought. We're being with the energetic experience of the mind and the body. And there's a taste we get from that. There's a flavor we get from that. And we find it in the lineup at the grocery store.